Hi guys, this is Pilleater. I'm talking to Pikachu right now. Hi Pikachu.
Hi. Hi.
Hey Pikachu, how are you?
I'm pretty good.
I'm doing good myself. It's a very rainy day outside
Oh
and a
yeah, it's
lot
raining over here too.
yes, it's an interesting day today. I was in my living room and Donald Trump just called somebody said they had fake news or something like that. I don't know what exactly the Trump drama is.
There's always Trump drama.
Yes, yes. Are you a Democrat or Republican?
Um, I wouldn't describe myself as like either. I really hate both of the parties. Yeah, I like this election. I was so angry at the Democratic Party. I voted for Jill Stein, so I really
Ah,
didn't.
that's funny. I have another friend who voted. I had two friends that vote Jill Stein. You make the
Yeah,
third one.
and it was yeah. I couldn't bring myself to vote for Hillary, and I don't really like Trump. I don't think he's not gonna like destroy the. I don't think he's going to destroy the world like everyone else is saying. I live in California, and uh, we have this thing called Calexit actually,
Yes, I heard about
and
that.
it's so ridiculous. And
Are you for it? Do you want to divide
no,
California?
okay, like remember when Obama was elected and Texas wanted to exit? Everyone I knew was making fun of them for like a month. It was just like the biggest joke.
I
And now
remember
that
that.
yeah, now that Trump's elected, we're trying to do the exact same thing. And it's just this ridiculous turn, and I don't understand it.
Interesting. I mean, I do remember when the whole Texas Succeed thing was going on, and I thought it was going to be part of Mexico. But now with this whole California separating, I don't know if it's going to be possible in about a few years. But yeah, that is interesting to think about. Yeah. Um, I mean, certainly we live in a political situation right now where if you turn on the television, all you hear is basically Trump 24/7. And yeah, it seems like whenever good or bad publicity, Trump still has it. And basically, he controls the whole media outlets and he gets his voice out there no matter what, kind of like a troll.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like it's mostly the media's fault. I feel like like they keep on like blowing up the truth. Like they never attack him on the stuff he's done. They're like he's a sex offender and a racist and all these other things. And then they don't attack him on like his lack of policies. They just go into these very long diatribes about how terrible of a person he is without actually producing any evidence. And then he says like, "Look at the media. Look at them. Look at them. They're lying about me again." And people go, "Well, like, yeah, they're lying about them. Look at him." And he just gets more. He gets more popular.
Do you watch Prince of Queens videos? Do you know about him?
No.
Okay, he has like 5,000 subscribers on YouTube, and we had him on the. I'm a co-host on the Stark Truth with Robert Stark, and he considers himself an alt-left, anti-social justice warrior blogger. How do you feel about that?
I don't know about the alt left, but I'm mostly anti-social justice warriors. I don't like the ideas that they put forth usually. Um, Especially like when it's usually like hypocritical racism. Like we can do this thing because we're brown or black, and white people can't do that thing because they're white, and it
Hmm.
doesn't. Yeah, I don't really like jive with that because it's racism usually, and I don't like it. uh,
Prince of Queens is interesting because he considers himself alt-left, which is a really new term. There's one website called www.altleft.com, which has recently been up. It's kind of like you could say it's anti-social justice warrior culture, but it's in a way trying to reform the whole political left as a whole. Because, you know, if we talk about Hillary, it's like, is she really the left wing? Or should be more of a proper Jill Stein left or something of that? It needs to be discussed. I mean, how do you think about the current situation with the political left?
oh, I definitely think it needs a reform. Like just like looking at the last election, it was like we wanted like most of like not even most of the left, a lot of the left wanted Bernie Sanders to be put up as the presidential candidate for the Democratic Party, and we didn't get that. With the establishment wanted Hillary because she's she's more. I wouldn't call her left. She's more like a central, like a left leaning centralist or like a right leaning. She's more like a like someone on the right who leans left. And she doesn't really like all of her policies were for big, um, sorry, corporations and like things that were generally disliked in the left. And I don't understand why the establishment would want her over someone like Bernie. Actually, I do, because Bernie Sanders was going to totally change the foundation of the Democratic Party, and that's not good for people in power.
I thought it was funny because I really thought it was going to come down to Donald Trump versus Bernie Sanders, as you would see Donald Trump as the accumulation of what would be the alt right on the internet, and then you have Bernie Sanders, which represents that kind of verso books, Noam Chomsky kind of classical socialism clashing together, where you've never seen these two parties left to right before, and it seems that Sanders, well, you might say it's a conspiracy, and they put Clinton over Sanders, and then Trump just went over Clinton, is simply because there was much more of an internet movement going on. But how do you think about the whole alt right going on? Do you think it's quite dangerous, or?
It's kind of interesting. I don't think it's like I wouldn't describe it as entirely dangerous. I think some of the ideas they put forth, like the the Roman saluting, I thought that was very interesting.
The Heelgate controversy at NPI when they all
yeah yeah, that kind of stuff. I don't think they're like bad per se. I think they're kind of like the SJWs of the right, and
yes.
I don't think I think their ideals will like die out in a couple of years as people come to realize like like why they're bad.
It's kind of
Hopefully.
like it's like libertarianism then formed to alt right, and the alt right could be something else. And the possibly, I'm just using. Yeah, I know what you're saying. It seems like today the alt right is they're social justice warriors of the far right, and they'll call you a cuck, Jew, or degenerate if they just don't agree with what you have to say.
Yeah, and I feel like that's one of the biggest problems politically. People don't want to talk to people that they don't agree with, and people don't want to listen to people that they don't agree with, and it just these echo chambers are just mounting, and we can't get anything done. And then when things happen like Donald Trump gets elected president, and everyone wants to everyone thinks the world is exploding, even though nothing is really happening.
How much of that do you think of Donald Trump's presidency has been influenced by the internet culture? Do you think 4chan or like some internet meme magic is going on to control our cultural thought, and especially in academia, and changing that?
Totally. Yeah, I think the biggest thing was Donald Trump's Twitter and things like Milo Yiannopoulos getting banned from Twitter and that whole like Twitter sphere. Because Donald Trump is constantly tweeting things. He's constantly on the internet. He's constantly interacting with people, even though it's not always in a good way. He's constantly making headlines, and he's constantly in people's faces. And Hillary was this just kind of like blasé kind of I'm a politician, vote for me kind of thing. She wasn't always in the forefront of people's minds. They didn't, turn on the news and see Trump. They turned on the news and saw Trump, and not Hillary. And so when that kind of happens, people start to like go, oh, maybe his policies aren't like that bad. And on top of that, Hillary was just like a terrible candidate. None of anything she wanted to do were things that people in America wanted to happen.
Do you think? Academia is in a dire situation? Do you think it's going to go away, or do you think that needs a reform too, or do you think that academia is giving out misinformation or just misguided with the huge inflation of giving out bachelor degrees? What's your say on that?
I think I don't really know. I think there's like there's like a weird trend of like social justice warriors going more into academia. So there's this like there's more of like that PC kind of thing, like PC history and kind of stuff. And I don't feel like there's too many bachelor degrees. I feel like there's still a lot of like very undereducated people in America, and that makes me kind of sad. But like, I feel like if we had like, for instance, like free education, like higher education, we could get a better standard of living for most people. So yeah, I don't really think there's too much bachelor's degrees. I definitely think there needs to be like a reform in education though.
Do you blog or have other extended Twitter or use any other websites, or do you keep your internet self online private?
Yeah, I'm mostly private. I don't really
Gotcha.
like sometimes I kind of like have spats with people on Twitter, but
That seems
that's
to be the
mostly it.
main format. I know a lot of people who are private, and yet they could have bigger voices by starting something, but they keep their because I know a lot of interesting people who will associate with this new term alt left, and yet they're the most private people ever. Like they're flirting with it. I mean, what should I call it? What do you think about feminism? Because in a way, I kind of like some aspects of feminism, but to some certain way. Are you mostly pro or anti or moderate about it?
It kind of depends. Usually I would say I'm anti-feminism, mostly because it just stems from this kind of like sexist kind of thing where they want like quota, they want like what's it called? Equality of outcome, and I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. It reminds me of like having quotas in businesses, and it just seems like something bad for people in general. Even it doesn't seem like something good for women or anyone really. Even people they seem to be fighting for, it doesn't seem like it helps them, and I don't like that. I think it's but like at the core ideals, I think I believe in egalitarianism and like equality of like race and sex and creed. I think that's all really important. I just don't usually come to terms with feminists.
That's interesting. I was talking to another person named Squid, and he was all for the ideal of egalitarianism or some form of equality, which is interesting to think about because in today's age, the situation of equality and egalitarianism will be often associated with the 1984 Big Brother state or like Animal Farm, where it's becoming to this point where if you don't get what he has, then I'll have to cut you down to make it equal. And it seems to be that it's hurting certain liberties, or there's this kind of evil egalitarianism. So when you advocate egalitarianism, how could you, I guess, reform it or make it nice or this kind of why would it be good to support an egalitarian system when we're in the most times where people are now being skeptical about it?
Yeah, I think the biggest problem is the like the confusion of like I don't when I'm saying egalitarianism I mean at the like I mean like equal opportunity and not equal outcome. Like, because some people don't want to make, five figures, a five-figure salary, and some people, just want to like live a modest life, and those people should be allowed to do that. They shouldn't have to be in a corporate job. Some women like to be stay-home mothers. Some men like to be stay-home fathers, and they should be allowed to do those things. But they should have the choice to make a five-figure salary if they want to. So if you see a trend of most women like to stay home, it's not because women are, being oppressed in some way in an egalitarian system. It's because most women like that kind of thing. And we shouldn't have to force people into jobs that they don't want to do or force people to do things or act certain ways they don't want to do because we feel like it'll make an equal state. If people don't want to do things, they shouldn't do them.
Are you a fan of Jacobin Mag or the show Democracy Now?
I've never heard of those.
Oh, with Amy Goodman, Democracy Now, or that's always on Line TV. Or Jacobin Mag seems to be the premier journal of American left wing, and they seem to be this anti-social justice warrior magazine that wants to reform the left. And they're also, while they're pro Bernie Sanders, they're also very critical of what Sanders should have done before. I mean, they're getting a lot of flack right now because they are talking, defending white interest, which seems to be, if you're pro-white, you're the far right, and But Jacobin is doing stuff which is things that the current established left hasn't thought of before. I mean, it's a pretty well-known magazine. At the same time, I mean, if you know Slavoj Zizek, he constantly contributes to the magazine. But Democracy Now, I mean, you have also that this they're trying to reform the left too. But there's something interesting happening in those two media outlets.
Yeah, I think that I don't know, it's so bad to be white now. It's so interesting that the left is just like kind of on this heel turn, and now they're totally against white people, and white people are just the devil basically,
Yeah.
and I don't really get it.
Me neither. I mean, it's certainly that's where I'm often associated with the alt left, where the best way to describe it, it's the left wing faction of the alt right, where it's not about the Hitler fetishism or this extreme white nationalist anti Semitic thing going on. It's basically what has made wrong of that postmodern left and basically takes some ideals of the alt-right and makes it healthy again to be proud to be considered left-wing. Because I think at the current moment, it's really hard to consider yourself left-wing with all the stuff, this abstract notions of philosophy and third wave feminism and whatever, intersectional. If you're into that, the thing is, I think only Prince of Queens knows how to juggle that, and it seems like you have to start at year zero again with these things.
Definitely, I think we need like an entire board wipe on the whole left. It doesn't. Most of the things that happen in the left are very. They don't happen. They don't seem to be happening for anyone really. They seem to be happening for people who are already in power in the left, and most things are just to manipulate other people into agreeing with them or acting in a certain way, and doing this whole oppression Olympics thing. And the more oppressed you are, the more power you should have.
How active are you in trolling? And do you think trolling has an influence upon being the new Dada art form or some kind of being sincere and authentic? Seems that humor is taking place with political power or changing ideals.
I don't usually troll, but I I think it's definitely like an interesting like internet phenomenon. Like I know it's definitely happened in real life, but like this is like an unprecedented kind of time where people just get to use their anonymity and just kind of like mess with other people without really any kind of fear of any repercussion. And I think it's really interesting that these people do that. I think it's kind of funny that they're making it like a kind of like a humorous type of thing. Like maybe in a couple of years there'll be like a big YouTube channel or like a TV show that's all about trolling people, Punked, but on the internet.
Have you watched Sam Hyde's World Peace on Adult Swim?
No.
That seems to be it's now longer because Adult Swim pulled the plug on it, but those 15-minute episodes were the most alt-right trolling avant-garde shows ever. I mean, you can watch them now on YouTube, but I still watch them, and they'll cover everything from men going their own way to red pill theories to things. It was pretty controversial, and that's why Adult Swim, they couldn't handle it anymore. But yeah.
Yeah.
Do you along with the alt left, have you ever heard of something called Asian-Aryanism?
I have. I saw your video on Big Man Tyrone. That's actually how I found you, and then I wanted to talk to you because I thought it was I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, it's a relatively new concept that's floating around the alt-right, and it is floating on some Facebook pages too. Though I don't have a presence on Facebook, such groups like the rightstuff.biz and I think Trad Youth has been pretty concerned about it, but only the alt-left and the Stark Truth have had a safe place for such ideology.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So it's not race mixing.
Well, depending how you determine race mixing, because especially from the far right, what I've been getting is that if you race mix, you're supposedly a cuck, degenerate, or Jew. So,
Yeah.
but the act of having white male Asian female or Asian male white female, you're supposedly race mixing. However, I don't need to advocate for race mixing because everybody else has race mix and that outcome has already happened.
I see. Okay. And then so like you're proposing an ethno state, and I'm kind of like a little fuzzy on like the idea of an ethno state. Does that mean like no one of a certain ethnicity can be admitted in as a citizen?
Have you watched Richard Spencer or know about him?
I've heard about him. I don't really know a lot about him. I'm pretty ignorant on most things when it comes to the alt-right.
Okay, well, the story goes like this. About 2 years ago on American Renaissance Conference, Richard Spencer was there, and his whole speech was that at the end he said, we need a white ethno state where there's going to be a white science fiction fantasy place out in the middle of America and everybody else is going to go whatever. And we're going to do that like Jews to Israel, the new Zionist party. And so everybody, that fever was happening. Then now we have the whole Heelgate thing happening where Spencer tried to make a postmodern, ironic, sarcastic joke about hailing Trump, but it got all wrong, and then it became this strange thing. But there's this fascination in the far right of having a ethno state, primarily a white ethno state, and everybody online is supposedly going to go that, and we're going to have our new Israel, and everyone who's red pill will all stop race mixing and have their little ethno state. However, we have to remember we're in a multicultural and diverse society, and the after effects of that, especially from the 80s and 90s. And if you use your statistics and look at what has happened, the most children, especially, I know you're in California, especially over here in the New York area too, where there are a lot of professional white males who've married white Asian females and have had now millennials who are half white and half Asian, and they're just there and they represent that new multi-race of people. This unfortunately isn't white male, black female, or black male, white female, or any of the other non-white races. It seems that in the multicultural game, white men have chose Asian wives over everyone else because they are the model minority, and the East and the West have this weird specialization. Now, because they are there, white men get intimidated and scared by feminism, especially from white women, so they will gravitate to the more conservative and traditional-minded Asian women. And then that's what they're doing. I have 3 white friends who have Asian girlfriends. I know one guy who's getting married and they're going to have children. And I'm a part of that scene, but they don't want to call that scene anything. You might say it's Asian American, but the thing is that doesn't work either, because are you talking about Asians in America, or are you talking about half white, half Asians? So the word Asian-Aryan is a radical term that basically replaces American and Asian American, or replace it with Aryanism, which is sort of more radical, to refer to a group of self-identifying interests of people, of whites, who like Asian culture and who have, I guess I'll say race mix, why not, with other Asians, and they've developed a white Asian people, and they now want a ethno-state exactly with their white nationalist brothers near Richard Spencer's place, or at least maybe in any major city, and that's what's going to happen. It's just we're now in a red pill ethno state place. I don't know. It's like the internet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of interesting. And so, would you? Okay, so this movement is very like race based, and would you like? I've heard a lot of people call you a racist, and from what I've seen, you don't seem like that.
Well, I mean, my girlfriend doesn't think I'm racist, and I've been to Asian studies class. I mean, that's why I went to school for Asian studies. My girlfriend thinks I'm the most coolest person ever. Hey, I'll bring her to a white nationalist event. And everybody's like, hey, it's that cool kid with the hot Asian girlfriend. And his favorite band is Juju. Do you like Juju?
I've never heard of Juju.
Okay, we had him on The Stark Truth. I'm the co-host of The Stark Truth with Robert Stark. Jamie Stewart of Juju is in a very, I hope Jamie doesn't get mad, but Jamie, you're an Asian-Aryan. I don't care what you have to say, but I don't know. That aesthetic is coming on. I mean, I love Mitski, and I love Kira Bonita. I love Asian American stuff like that, like maybe like Atari Teenage Riot and fun stuff. And it's just, you know what? I'm gonna come with a word. I don't care if you say it's Asian American or Wapanese or Weeb. I think Wapanese and Weeb is a degrading term because it assumes that they're just white people who are only culturally appropriating anything. I think that's nonsense. It's time to transcend and become that Asian-Aryan. And I think Aryan is definitely a shock art term, and it'll get people's sense in there. And also, Asian-Aryanism is only accepted in the alt-left because it's about certain liberties and freedoms.
Yeah, I think Aryan has got a bad rap over the years.
And I think someone once told me, hey, you can't call it Asian-Aryan. That's an oxymoron. Aryans were never Asian. And also, I'm not referring to Aryan as like a neo-Nazi Asian role-playing cosplay you find in some image board. No, I'm just using the word in a whimsical way where I'm referring to this master race of people, or at least a new race of people that just don't want to admit their follies in a blind race society, right? There's another word I use called new cuck, right? The alt-right will call me a cuck for race mixing. However, I call certain people who have Asian wives new cucks if they don't admit their racial destiny, what has happening. I'll say them, hey, you have a very attractive Asian wife, and I like what you're doing, and we relate culturally. And my white friend will go, no, that's nonsense. This has nothing to do with that. I chose her because I love her. She could have been black, she could have been Mexican, but I chose her for that. And so the truth is they discriminated and they did choose an Asian wife because they can't stand their white feminist women. And so they have these children. Their children can't be universal white based because really what they're doing is they're denying their white racial consciousness in favor of an Asian consciousness. And look, the point of Asian-Aryanism is to have a synergy between both the white and the Asian aspect, not to assimilate on the Asian side and not to assimilate back on the white side. I mean, it seems more focused on the white side for obvious reasons because you're being denied of it. But I think this third position Asian-Aryan thing will happen. And especially now that this talk about ethno-states is certainly the answer to multiculturalism, because if we have this, when everybody comes together, they have tension and conflict, and then everybody's just going to go back up to their room, and when dad says come down to eat dinner, everybody will. But I use ethno-states in a friendly terminology and not some violent William Pierce way.
I see. Yeah, like, so I know a lot of people who I live in like so I live in San Diego, and I live in like basically Little Asia, and most people I know have dated Asian people, and I don't think it's just because of the race thing. It might be like, it might be because of someone's like circumstantial things, like, you know, they live like around a lot of Asian people, so they're more likely to date an Asian person. And so would you say that like most white men are more likely to date an Asian woman than another coupling?
I've talked with this on Bay Area Guy, and we were talking about the statistics on another Stark Truth show. And the argument was it was Hispanic women over Asian women. But still, if you think about the numbers is really big for Asian, especially Chinese. I mean, I'm in a Chinatown myself, and I see it everywhere, and I think it's a wonderful thing. I think it's beautiful that there's this new white Asian thing happening. However, it's really, they're quiet about it. And the whole Hispanic thing, yeah, it might be true because of numbers, but who has the more power? I think white Asian, especially in Fortune 500 positions, will have the power and will have cultural influence, especially on the internet. It's not like somebody's going on the internet and saying the new white Hispanic thing that's happening. I mean, God bless them. I hope they make their own institutions. But you're right. From what I've seen, I have to say that everywhere I go, I'm seeing just that over and over again, from punk rock shows to art galleries, vegan restaurants, and nerd conventions.
So then, I think I lost all my questions.
But
yeah.
Here's the thing. I mean, sexually lies. When I'm talking about an Asian-Aryan state too, I'm not saying that. I'm certainly for a healthy society. I think the family is basis for society. However, they can be both a left wing and a right wing in an Asian-Aryan state. The same way the white nationalists argue, where white nationalism says that you can have a left wing and a right wing in a white national state, so as long as you're not anti-white about things. I'm the same way. You can have a left wing and a right wing in an Asian-Aryan state, so as long as you're not anti-Asian-Aryan and want to basically try to stop the interest of those people, because it's certainly a culture group of people who all relate to one another. And so that I'm also speaking about gay people also being a part of it too.
That's interesting. There's not a lot of talk of like gay people in the at least I don't think so, in the alt-right. And so would you say that like the LGBTQ plus, I don't know all the letters to it.
Sorry.
Yeah, would you say that there would be like this state, ethno-state is very inclusive and like a free society?
It is definitely a free society, but you know what? I come from a religious background where I do believe in tradition. I don't drink, I don't do drugs, and I'm not a promiscuous person as you might have to believe in or something. And I tend to believe where it's like, you know what? I just want to have a wife, 3 kids, a good job, and good family. And that's really any normal, healthy hetero person would want, and that's kind of a basis for ruling civilization. Now, in any free society, yeah, if you want to be other those things, just so as long as you don't hurt or harm the society and make it like Brazil. I mean, the Japanese Brazilians have already gated themselves away from the Brazilian people and now have a Japanese Brazilian elite, which they think they're above the common Brazilian man. That just happens when people are more racially inclusive to one another. And so hopefully, I don't want racial tension to happen, but I think there's this natural, hopefully a Western Confucius Taoist cultural anime norms that will happen and make a part of this new pan Asian Aryan thing.
I see. So do you think these like racial tensions happen like regardless of like there's always going to be racial tensions, or do you think that like maybe it'll cool down at some point between every race really like this kind of melting pot society we live in?
You know what? It's unfortunate because I think it's so sad that there's this Black Lives Matter riot and craziness going on. I mean, I don't care if people are pro or anti Black Lives Matter, but white and black relations is one of the worst things in America, and you just cannot answer it on either sides. And they've been trying to race mix and have white and black children, but it seems to me the white black children become black and not white, or not proud to be Oreo. And certainly I don't want to talk about the issues that are non-Asian, non-white, because I'm going to be honest, I can talk for both sides of Chinese, Japanese, and European, and I could see those things because I know those things, but I just cannot speak for other of non those things, and hopefully maybe people can understand and make connections. I mean, I've had some interviews with the Adventure Kid and Animus Hotep, who are these black guys who have interest in the alt-right and esoteric African religion and some other things, and they can totally understand where I'm coming from, and both of them would be considered Asian-Aryan advocates. It's so interesting. I do believe in handshaking, but at the current political climate, I just don't want to associate myself with this multiracial thing, as I don't want to have burdens or some kind of thing. I want to focus on what I want and what my other friends want and what we have a little achieve. And so I think that is something happening. Asian-Aryanism is happening right now.
Yeah. Actually, I'm black, and I thought that this was super interesting, and so I wanted to ask you a whole bunch of questions about it. And so,
I mean, do you have an Asian wife?
I've dated like one Asian girl. I'm like 20. I'm still in college, and
I just got out of college. Actually, I'm in my early 20s too. So, hey, we're talking about some. Do you know who Joseph on Deck is?
No.
He's a black rapper who's interested in the whole Asian Aryan thing too. But we were talking, should there be a sub-Afro Asian Aryanism, or should it be just, we were talking about these silly things. I use the concept Jiro and Billy Blanks as ideal Afro Asian Aryans, though I don't think there are correct names, and I really don't want to speak for it. And I hope Joseph on Deck would be able to further elaborate, or even maybe the Adventure Kid. I had one interview with the Adventure Kid, and hopefully I can get him back on and maybe talk about those race relations. But yes, I would definitely like to improve on those things.
Yeah. I don't think, like, I don't really know if a lot of black people date Asian people, and because this is like this weird thing where black people want you to date other black people. It's very like
it's always white. It's white female to black male, and white male to Asian female seems to be what's happening in the multicultural game.
Yeah, and
it's even I'm sorry. It's even sadder that the highest divorce rate is black male, white female.
Yeah,
that's sad.
And I don't really like. I don't know. I'm not really like I don't really like. I don't really like. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I don't really discriminate when I like choose a partner. I don't really like pay attention to that sort of thing. Like I've dated a few white people, a few white girls, and like an Asian girl and a black girl, but I haven't really like selected a partner based on race. And I just find it interesting. Like I don't think there's a problem with people selecting partners based on race. I think that it's I don't like that in like the leftist culture. It's not okay to discriminate for race, even though people tell you to like not judge people based on their race.
Now,
And it's this weird.
do you prefer Asian women?
Not really.
Oh, ah,
But that like not like more than other women. I think some Asian. I've met some really cute Asian women. I've met some really cute white women. I've met some really cute Hispanic women. But I don't really like prefer any race over another.
okay. So you're very because here's the thing. I'm very open. Like, if you prefer one race over the other, I am okay with that. And I'm actually trying to fight against the ideal of fetishism, where it's like the fetish ideal means you have an abnormal interest in that compared to just a preference or people to be preferred like yourself, right? You don't call it a fetish when it's the same race, white male, white female, or black male, black female. You don't call that a fetish. You seemingly only call it a fetish when there's something up with somebody who only selects a certain. You have to be very specific with that. And in no way I am advocating a fetish thing, but I can totally sympathize with people who do have fetishes. And I think the preferences is powerful, and I think people should. I'm okay with the ideal if you prefer one race over the other.
Yeah, I think that dating in itself is a discriminatory practice. Like you're not gonna like the entire ideal is to screen out people until you find someone you want to marry. So to say that we can't also do that with on the basis of race or yeah, to say that you can't discriminate against someone because you don't want to date someone based on their race is kind of this weird. It's kind of hypocritical because at the same point, the left wants you to date anyone. They want you to be very inclusive about your.
Yes.
They want you to select someone outside of your race and be very like they want you to race mix. And when you try to do that, you're a fetishist. You're someone who
I know.
yeah.
I've dealt
And
with that before. I mean, it's
I
weird. It's like I think I've came to the conclusion where it's white feminists who propagate that, but at the same time saying, no, 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 you should just date me. And then it creates this weird hetero crypto right wing thing that's happening, and I just don't understand the position.
Yeah, I knew a girl in high school who really she was Asian and she really liked black guys and she actually liked me and I didn't notice
No.
until
Ah, you missed your
I didn't
chance.
she was like my best friend and I didn't notice until like the end of high school and she would constantly but talk about like liking black guys and I didn't know that like at the time I thought it was kind of weird and that was I was in like a phase where I was farther left than I am now and I thought it was kind of weird that she liked black guys specifically for being black
Oh
and I thought
no. And I knew two Asian girls too who are our good friends, and they just told me right up that I like black men because they're aggressive and they treat and they have fun. But I've never had any chances where they have loyalties or married and have children. And so maybe that's one issue I would like to talk in that whole Afro Asian thing too. I mean, certainly it's also on the you ever hear the losers in the multicultural game? It's Asian male, black female, black male, Asian female. It just doesn't happen. Gerald and Phoebe from A Arnold. It's just nothing.
yeah, I don't think I think it's partially like the cultures are very different and then like I don't think there's a lot of like interaction also between these two groups of people. So it's not really like likely that they'll get together. Like I know I live in like a small like basically a little Asia and I know more Mexicans than I do
Uh,
Asian people.
there's
Even though I go to like the Korean market down the street like every day.
Same. I there's a market too, and it's in Chinatown. But have you ever heard of Andrian Tomine?
No.
He's a Asian American, or should I say Asian-Aryan artist. He has a Asian male, married white female. He's an artist for the New Yorker. The recent edition of the New Yorker magazine for the January 12th issue features a black male and a Japanese female on the front cover putting love locks. Love locks is a tradition in Japan where you put your lover in a lock together and they go on there. That's really surprising because on that cover, the Mr. Tomine is assuming that there is this Afro-Asian thing going on, that love locks is a thing in New York City, and this very futurist thing has happened. I sent him a PO box letter and a interview request. The secretary said he's busy at the moment. I hopefully he has read my letter, and I would like to get him on the Stark Truth to talk about this. But that is an interesting thing because for one thing, you could say this is a liberal fantasy, so white liberal elites can just caress their hand and say how darling it is that is happening. But at the same time, that doesn't really happen, and it's more on Mr. Tumine's side, who's Asian male, who's married a white female, and the Asian-Aryan thing is happening more often than that is. And so it's just a double whammy, a double thing that's going on, a double facade. I don't know.
Yeah, I can definitely see that kind of thing. I think the left likes to push the idea that race mixing happens more than it does.
But do you know what the statistics on Tinder is for preference?
I think isn't it like white men and Asian females are like the most
Asian women liking after and the vice versa too. Isn't that surprising for Tinder statistics? I don't even use Tinder.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting that those type of things happen. I don't think it's. I think it's based on an individual basis, but then it comes to like this, like they accumulate into a statistic. So I think it's very interesting that these things. I think it's interesting that these things happen. That like these people, these very like because if you look at any individual case, you can see why these people are more attractive than other people. But then it extrapolates into this very different thing when you look at the whole of the statistics, and it's very weird to see trends in Tinder, and it's kind of interesting too.
Have you ever met any of the Jamaican Chinese people?
No.
They're very nice. I mean, I've had 3 Jamaican Chinese friends. On my YouTube channel, I've interviewed a close friend, Kira, who is Jamaican Chinese and completely is sympathetic to the Asian-Aryan side, what I'm talking about. And I would also be in her dorm room at the time. She's still in college. I graduated just recently. But when I was in her dorm room and I was talking about these things, she completely understood where I was coming from. And so I thought it was nice to phone call her and put her up on my YouTube channel. But yeah, there's definitely an interesting synergy, especially coming from the Jamaican Chinese side, where in Jamaica they're completely disliked because the Chinese are considered elite there, and however the Jamaican Chinese are would be considered Afro-Asian and have their own new. I think I don't want to use the word huli or coolie. I mean that's certainly a derogatory name, but I think there is also a name that's being developed for the Jamaican Chinese, which have their own third position interest, neither Jamaican nor Chinese, and I think it is. I'm seeing it a lot, especially in this city area where I'm from.
Yeah, that sounds like that sounds very interesting because it doesn't sound like these new like mixtures of people are going to have like the exact same interest as their predecessors as Asian people, as white people, or as black people and white people. They seem to have these new directions they want to go in, even if they are related to they related to black interest or white interest or Asian interests.
Now, would you advocate for an institution or interest for Afro-Asianism or some type of race of that?
I don't know. I would probably advocate for it if people wanted it. Like I'd say it's because it's totally permissible to want to be with an Asian woman, and I think it's totally fine if you're a black man and you want to be with an Asian woman and you want to be around people who are with Asian women.
Because
I think it's
if they grow in numbers and then they congregate together, that's when they become quite aware of things.
Yeah, and I think it's very interesting that these I think it would be. I think I would. I don't know if I would like be a what's it called? I don't think I'd be like a passionate advocate for it, but I would definitely like understand their want for it and their need for it essentially, and I would fight for them when the opportunity arose.
Mm. So you would be more on the social justice warrior side or advocate for freedom of association?
Yeah, you can associate with whoever you want to,
yes.
And do with whoever you want to, whatever you want, as long as it's totally legal to consenting adults.
Yeah, I'm the same way about freedom of association too. Now I understand too. You're more of the, I guess, race blind person, and you see you can find love through any individual, so as long as you're going to seek it later in your life. Or do you see that way, or do you have preferences?
I would say I don't really have preferences. Yeah, I wouldn't call myself race blind. But like I don't think I think that race is kind of like an arbitrary position for me. I don't really. Most of the girls I've like dated are like they've been like mixed. None of them have been like entirely white or like entirely black. So
So you're more like
and
anti preference, or not really?
not really anti-preference. Not really. Because like if you have a preference, I totally
Uh-huh.
understand. And if you know, you should do that. You should, if you like Asian women, you should date Asian women. That should be your you know your primary goal in the dating scene is to date Asian women because you know you deserve that in life. It's not like you know it's not like you're doing anything predatory. It's not like you're going around hurting people because you like Asian women. So I think that I don't specifically have any racial preferences. I like women, but like that, I think if you do have racial preferences, you should be allowed to date people of that preference without stigma.
Now, it seems that the left or the old style left has been very much criticized, especially from the coming from the communist utopian point of view, where you might have heard this before. I think everybody has heard this before. One day everybody's gonna race mix, and then we'll have a brown cafe au lait society, and we'll be like this strange ancient Egyptian people where none of this really does matter, and we're on a progressive, like quote unquote, progressive thing where we're trying to shed our racial backgrounds, become one thing. However, that's kind of very controversial and quite destructive to already based institutions from the West and the East. And it also assumes that it assumes that there's a forced thing against freedom of association, and it seems that there's some agenda going on. Now, accordingly, do you think that that's probably going to happen, or are you an advocate of that, or kind of critical of it?
I think that like maybe in like a very very long time it could happen. Like I'm talking like thousands of years from now. We won't people we know like our great grandchildren probably will be probably even farther than that will be some people that are these uh, non-racial type of people who everyone's the same race and it doesn't really matter. And so maybe like in a very very long time, I don't see it in the close future. I don't see it in like even like it's such a far distant future that it's not even worth thinking about usually. And but like I think that the left brings it up a lot, and it kind of triggers the alt right because
It's
they're
very
very
science fiction and fantasy like, and it's
yeah
very offensive, especially if you already have a traditionalist family, and especially that you have basis to where you're from and the blood you come from, and your brother or sister, and you're basically giving away your friends and family to strangers, right? And how do you consent to people becoming your friends, you know?
yeah. And then on top of that like add in like the white genocide kind of thing, and that just like that adds to the idea that these people are just against white people in some way. Like they don't add to they don't like act like it's less like an amalgamation and more like a like a threat to white people. Like in 100 years, you'll be extinct. And I think I see that a lot with people, and especially like my family. We're mostly like I think I'm only like half African, and then all the rest is European. But most of my family, we don't really like talking about our Irish roots, and we don't really like talking about the people we're related to, and we like to deny the white people we're related to. And
Exactly.
yeah, and I feel like that happens a lot in modern society where we act like white people are I was talking to my friend and she was because she called me light skinned because I'm like I have a lighter complexion. She's saying the only reason I was light skinned is because my one of my ancestors was like raped. And I don't see that as like it's obviously a bad thing for my ancestors to be raped, but like it's that the rapist is still I'm still related to the rapist. So like because you know what I mean. It's not like I'm not.
I had a
I
friend who was in my Asian studies class. He was Somalian Japanese, but he was the most gentleman-like person who related more on a Shinto religious side. And he told me that his dad raped his mother, and basically he was a Somalian soldier that came in contact with it. But he himself, he knew that was some kind of truth, but considered himself on the Japanese side and felt he had a duty to go with his Shinto identity and feels like he needs to show the way, the world of this universal Shintoism, which I think is a very interesting thing and possibly something in the nature of people, and that there's more to it than even it might seem that, people will say, oh, well, you're illegitimate, you're a bastard. But this guy is making it more meaningful and stronger than before.
Yeah, and I feel like I think that people shouldn't deny their heritage. Like, I feel like that guy should acknowledge his Somalian.
I think he does, but he was more on
roots.
the Shinto side and felt like he belonged to this, and he wanted to play race blind to the fact he was Somalian.
Yeah,
That's
and
what
I
I
can
got from it.
I can understand that, but like especially in America, a lot of people deny their roots and deny their heritage, um, and they wanna act like it doesn't matter, and they wanna like kind of they wanna separate themselves from other people, and I don't think that's a very healthy society. Like I feel like I feel like at some point we might devolve into these kind of like ethno states of like California being like this
Yes.
very like liberal type of place, and then Texas being like a more white traditionalist type of place. And I don't want that to happen. I don't think it would be a very healthy way for a country to survive if everywhere is entirely divisive and you can't transplant yourself anywhere in the country.
Well, I have my seatbelts on, and I'm actually quite prepared to that. Not to sound like the race war is coming tomorrow, but as I feel with the current trends and what I've been learning, is that multicultural diversity is going to produce these quote-unquote ethno-states, and kind of like a science fiction story like in Shadowrun. There's going to be divided California states and Texas, like you said. Now, that seems a little wacky, and it seems like, well, it seems little, nothing's going anywhere at soon, but if we have a divided situation at now, you just have to think about that and just plan in these scenarios. So I think people will have traditions and loyalties, and even when they're racially mixed, they will have enough people to congregate, and basically what seems to be universal will only refer to a single person. That's why these whole feminist schools of studies and these far left ideals always talk about white people, pretending to be above it all when in fact it's just stuff white people like. And then it's white people playing these weird word games to get their own interest across, but not being honestly about that they prefer their own people. And so it might be this whole anti-white agenda going on, but still, I think people have loyalties to their families.
Yeah, I definitely see that as people having loyalties to their. I don't see anything wrong with having like a loyalty to your own race or your own family, and being proud to be whatever race you are. I think it's very interesting that everyone wants to separate themselves from their race, and I think it's important to be an individual, but I think it's also important to acknowledge what race you have, and understand it.
Have you ever heard of Richard von Kalergi?
No.
This is often talked about in the alt-right sphere or far-right sphere. Kalergi, I think I'm pronouncing his name right, he was a Japanese Austrian politician, and he had something called the Kalergi Plan for European genocide. He did not in those words, but his ideal was that there would be three distinct people. There would be these, I think he called it like white Asian people, and he called it Negroid or something like that. Then what would happen is that they would mix together to create this strange, advanced, ancient Egyptian people. Now, it seems, once again, it sounds very science fiction. This is once again coming from, I would say, an Asian-Aryan. I wrote about this on my official website, www.asianaryanism.com. I wrote about the About page about him for a bit. And so it sounds like a big thing. However, he also says that there's only one race that should be preserved, and those were Jews, right? And then it's like, wait a second. So you're saying that everyone should be racially mixed and creating this ancient Egyptian Afro-Asian-Aryan people, and then the holy people that shouldn't race mix are Jews, and that's like, then you see where this is going. So the far right has been using this as there is definitely a Zog or some Zionist plan going on. However, I think the guy, I can understand racial confusion and identity, and I think he would have been a perfect candidate for Asian-Aryanism. I just think he probably just shook hands with pretty much intellectual Jewish elites and just made this conclusion. I think maybe he wrote this in Pan Europa, his book, and just assumed that everybody would be racially mixed and it really doesn't matter. When I think he really cared about Austrian Japanese people, or at least a European Japanese mix, and would have conserved that. He was just, because I don't know, I would think he would just have to rethink race on those matters.
Yeah, it seems very interesting. I don't really understand the problem that the alt-right has with Jewish people. I grew up in a mostly Jewish community, and I don't see the problem with it.
It's funny. I took a race and Judaism class at my own university for my race and diversity classes, and it's quite funny because the rabbi in the class was telling me that, look, Jews are real. The Jewish question is real. However, Jews have benefited the paradigm which is multicultural and diversity and has given us so much great liberal things. I'm like, that's kind of weird then. So I can point out and say that Jews will be Jews? Yes, so as long as it's not anti-Semitic. And, it's this, other than that, I remember he also had Kevin MacDonald's The Culture of Critique, which is very much read as, Jewish power and what they do. At the same time, however, it seems to be a very complicated question, the Jewish question, because they are a race of people that want to have conservative racial interests, but at the same time have control or have influence over certain, they're so small, but they make up only 10% of all positions of power.
Yeah, I don't see like the problem with that, because like Asian people make up like what is it, like 7% of the population, and they have the highest education rates.
And that's why I argue a lot of the time too. Yeah, and that's why they're going to have more cultural power over the white and Hispanic coupling.
Yeah, and I think it's very interesting that there's like a problem with Jewish people having these very high education and salary rates.
It's also true that if you're Jewish, supposedly the trope is you're all for, quote unquote deconstruction, race destroying, and anti-traditional values, and you're this eccentric that don't cares about things, and you're not on par with being conservative. I can totally understand that. However, there are very conservative Jews who want the state of Israel, and I think that should happen. And if you're really for nationalism, you have to make sure there's going to be an Israel too, in a place where all Jews can go to.
Yeah, I can totally understand that, and but that goes back to like the ethno-state thing, and
yes, exactly, and that's what's being talked about on the whole alt-right red pill Twitter scene. So I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like it's super divisive. The term, the idea of an ethno-state is super divisive. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but it could be, I think.
What would be your solution to these things, and how do you think what's going to go about after this whole Trump election, the alt-right, and what is the future of politics, especially on the internet? What do you see in a science fiction scenario?
The far left, it's all going to topple down. I feel like it's already started its tumble, and it's going to go to like ground zero basically, and we're going to have to build it from the ground up. It's going to be a mess for at least 4 years. And I don't know, I don't see the alt-right growing in any way unless Trump does something extremely like he performs sort of a miracle on America. I don't see the alt-right growing very much. But I also don't see it like shrinking unless Trump does something extremely catastrophic. I don't foresee any like crazy civil war happening. I don't foresee him doing anything outside of the Constitution. And then the race thing, I don't really know how that's going. I would like to say it's moving in a more progressive manner. It's, people are getting more tolerant of each other again. I feel like there was a time in like the 90s and 80s and the early 2000s, where everyone was like kind of okay with everyone else's race, and that no one really cared. And now we've gotten back to this point where there's all these tensions again, and everyone wants to, leave America and stop associating with other people of a different race. And so it might cool down in 5 to 10 years. It might heat up again. I think it kind of depends on the next president. If the next president is someone who's super divisive, if Trump does like a terrible job and the right puts up someone who's just as bad as him, and the left wins again, and the pendulum switches again, I think the tensions will rise again.
Here's what I think is going to happen. I think there will be an alt left. Definitely after when the alt right is, there'll be a yin and yang balance, and there'll be a new left that probably it's not focused on French Revolution, communism, or the Frankfurt School, and it certainly will start up again of what values are considered left wing. I always say friends, family, freedom. I think most people are lying, and that everything has been a lie made up by white liberals. And not to sound anti-white or have white guilt, but white people like to hide their interest in things while having white racial interests. And if the multicultural and diverse paradigm goes on, the whites will only indiscriminate exclusively with Asian women, and we'll have this weird, I call it Asian-Aryan, or some kind of Asian new white people. One person by the name of Jennifer Suzuki, which is like a pen name of a troll, stated that the new white will be half Asian. So because, they won't even say Asian-Aryan, they'll call it white, and then it seems to be a synergy between West and East. At that same time, however, this whole dominant Asian culture is happening on Twitter. Certainly there's something called the anime right, and everybody has to publish that the ideal woman is now an anime girl, and maybe anime will become real, especially that's what people have been doing because life is so mundane that people want anime real. And it's currently, I don't know if the white birth rates will fall down, but certainly the white Asian birth rate will go up because white feminists, you can't even produce with them because there's something of a byproduct of the nature of white women that white men cannot stand anymore, and feminism. I don't know. It's all this. And that's why, let me rewind back here. That's why I'm an advocate for yellow feminism. Have you ever heard of yellow feminism?
I've heard you talk about it a few times. It's
okay.
Like
you know what it means.
Yeah.
And so basically what happened is white men will fall for Asian feminists, and Asian feminists will fall for white men, thinking they're doing something for feminism, and then that's just going to collapse. It's going to benefit white men, and then feminism becomes the annoying white woman ideology, and basically all this stuff is going down. I'm kind of the pessimist, but at the same time, I'm optimistic about these things, and I've experienced it myself, and I feel that you need to, like I'm seeing in the future, and I'm trying to talk to people which exist now, but they don't have the words to describe it. I know Asian-Aryan is a shock art term, however it's been working. I just can't call it Asian American or white Asian or some Wapanese or weeb. Those are degrading terms. Asian-Aryan is new, it's starting, it's exciting, it's like post-alt-right, and I feel as though that it's going somewhere, and it's definitely its own culture. And I have yet to talk more about the culture end, because it's like Christian Lander's book, Stuff White People Like. You can write everything what the liberal white person likes compared to the wrong kind of white person, and have white identity in a humorous form. I'm going to try to be writing or publishing stuff Asian-Aryan or Eurasian people like, I know there's the whole HAPA Reddit, which kind of, like I'm the opponent of the HAPA Reddit board, because the HAPA Reddit says that the enemy of all HAPAs is Asian-Aryanism. I made up the word, but still, it's a thing that needs to be discussed, and I think people should be okay with the Asian-Aryan term. So yeah,
aren't HAPAs like half Asian, half white people?
Yeah, there's this blogger named Eurasian Writer, and he wrote about why it's so bad to be half white, half Asian. You should just kill yourself and commit suicide, and it's better to be hetero relations with white male, white female, Asian male, white Asian female, and any relationship between white and Asians is a joke, which that's what he says. And I think, no, he's a joke, and basically he created this whole suicide cult called the HAPA Reddit, and they all believe that there's this huge white Asian people denying their Asian side in favor of the white side, and just how awfully racist and social justice warrior it is. And it's like, hey, there's nothing wrong with Tila Tequila and Margaret Cho. I'm a part of that scene, and basically this is a new race of people, And if you want to be Chinese and Asian, go ahead. But you can't. You have to choose a side on those things. And so I'm going to be the boogeyman for the Happa Reddit. I'm going to continue enjoying it. So that's where I'm going at the moment.
Yeah, so like I don't understand like the problem with being half Asian and half like, do they have like a? Is
Yeah,
it
they
like
have all these
it's
reasons because one, you lose at the multicultural game. If you're Asian male, you're just basically you're not a muscular Adonis white man. You're a geek that is a beta male. You're not alpha, and they think that's wrong. I don't think that's wrong at all. All you have to do is just lift weights, eat healthy, look good, shave, do anything what anyone does to be look like a good man. And here they think it's wrong because you automatically have a handicap. They just want to whine and say want to cry in their misery or something. I know what you're talking about, and it's just like you can overcome these things by being a better person. I don't know. I don't want to go on a why I don't like the Happa board, but they got problems against me, and they think I'm some kind of. When I interviewed China Goth, China Goth understands where exactly I'm coming from. That got huge exposure on the Happa Reddit and say how terrifying of a person I was.
uh, yeah, I don't think it's very hard for anyone really to get like a suitable like mate, suitable like partner. It's just like I mean, obviously it's gonna be harder for some people, but like by case case basis, some people are just more attractive than other people, and I don't think that you should like look at your race and say, oh, I'm automatically handicapped, or this is so much harder for me
Well,
to
they
date
do it
someone.
anyway, and it's annoying. And I've been around people too who are like that too, and I just can't stand it, and that's why I'm speaking out for it. It's a prideful term, Asian-Aryan. It's not a degenerate term. It's a prideful term to say you can be red pilled, Asian white, and all this stuff at the same time. And it's a certainly aesthetic lifestyle, and I'm just reaching out to other people who know what I'm talking about, and white males and Asian females, Asian males, white what they can join it too. It's not if you have interest, it's there. So, but yeah, we're reaching the hour. I'm gonna close the interview. Is there anything else you want to say about your latest attack activity, or you're doing anything in the future?
I'm not really doing anything. This is a lovely talk. I thank you for having me on. Yeah, thank you again. This is super cool.
Hopefully, I can have you on in the future. I'm gonna be contacting with other people, and I hope to do this podcast more often. But yeah, talk to you later. Okay. Thanks talking to
Okay,
you.
thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.